One more time, it might. It's still on. Just hit it up.
Well, I regret turning it on.
I know it. It eventually it'll go off.
Do I just hold it?
Reflect that all members are in attendance. And I need to confirm that Mayor Vaughn and Mayor Pro Tem Johnson are on Zoom. Mayor?
Yes, I'm on Zoom.
Mayor Pro Tem? Can we see her? No? She's not going to be there. So for the moment, we need a motion to excuse Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
So moved. Second.
And moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Dr. Wells. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor. We will begin the meeting with a moment of silence. Now, if we can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Mrs. Thurm, would you honor us with it?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just a few house rules. Please silence all electronic devices. If you must make or receive a phone call, kindly do so from the outside of the council chambers. The Greensboro City Council welcomes resident input, and it is important for all attendees to feel that the Katie Dorset Council Chambers is a welcoming and safe space where residents feel empowered to bring issues of concern before their elected officials. Individuals may sign up to speak on specific consent or business agenda items. The subject will be noted, and if it requires action or a request, the city clerk and/or the city manager will note as such and provide steps for any required response or after action. People registering to speak are required to acknowledge the rules of decorum for meeting participation. These rules do not limit the content of the speaker's message, but are to ensure that the speaker understands that we expect this meeting will be conducted in a safe, civil, and orderly manner. All meeting attendees are expected to respect speakers and council deliberations. The City of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. Therefore, speakers shall refrain from personal attacks. The mayor or presiding officer has the authority to enforce the rules of decorum. Speakers or audience members who intentionally disrupt the meeting or ridicule other speakers will be given a warning, and if unheeded, will be removed from the meeting. That person or persons will be suspended from in-person participation for the next 3 months. In order to preserve their right to free speech, they may attend virtually by Zoom, by phone, or may submit comments via email. Speakers must be signed up to speak by 6 p.m. Any speaker handouts must be provided to the city clerk or courier for distribution to council. Residents are not allowed to approach the dais unless invited by council to do so. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes and can speak once on an agenda item. Depending on the number of speakers, City Council may decrease this time allocation, and speakers may not relinquish their time to other speakers. The order in which speakers are called is at the discretion of the mayor or presiding officer. Zoom participants shall mute their microphones until they are called upon to speak. All meeting attendees, including Zoom participants, are expected to respect speakers and council deliberations. By statute, council members must vote on all items unless there is a direct financial interest or if they sit on a board of a nonprofit receiving funding from the city. All votes will be moved and seconded. The mayor or presiding officer will announce the vote total. We have a consent agenda for items G1 to G24, which are a grouping of agenda items that are voted on with one single vote to expedite what are believed to be routine and non-controversial items. Any council member may withdraw an item from the consent agenda due to a conflict of interest or for the purpose of voting no. Items removed from the consent agenda for discussion will be placed on the March 19th City Council business agenda. This meeting does include closed captioning. Lastly, depending on the length of tonight's meeting, we will take a short recess around 7:30 p.m. All right, so right now, this is the time for ceremonial and presentation items. I believe there's a city manager's report, but Mr. City Manager, I believe you have an assistant city manager who will present. Is that correct?
Yes, last time last council meeting we talked about Regency Inn, and I had said that we will come to you today with a timeline for the project. I know we have a presentation, but I don't know if we're able to pull it up. We also have Todd Lipka from Step Up, who is with us virtually. And so if we have that, we'll turn it over to Assistant City Manager Nasha McRae to kind of introduce us to the subject, and then we can discuss the questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, Mayor, members of Council. As was previously stated, Council requested at our last meeting to provide an update from Step Up and Slate regarding the transfer of the Regency Inn property. And so we do have Todd Lipka and Brian Vetter on the call as soon as we're able to get the technology working. Want to make sure that you all have the information regarding the next steps. Again, this is contingent upon an offer that was made late last week between Step Up to Partnership Homes for the transfer of the deed, and a meeting that happened yesterday, which was actually generally positive in terms of some of the terms and conditions. There were some minor edits that were made or need to be continued to be made in order for this transfer to be acceptable. So what you'll hear today is the requested timeline for closing up into the actual development of the project. Again, that is contingent upon the acceptance of the offer for the transfer and a successful close, which we hope will happen as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Is there a presentation for this?
Yes, so at this time, I believe Todd is on the call. And Todd, I will turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much, and Mayor and Council members, thank you for the opportunity again to visit with you from 2 weeks ago, where you asked for a timeline for the project. So that's what we'll be presenting to you tonight. Excuse me. So I can't see if the slides are up on the presentation or not. Are they? Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. So as you know, this is the conversion of the Regency Inn. Next slide. So this is a preliminary schedule of the milestone dates for the conversion of the property. As you know, this is our best assessment at this point, but as you know, with housing, you probably know all too well, painfully, that sometimes they're subject to change. But this is, at this point, our best judgment about the schedule for the project. And just to remind you, the initial design is a total of 201 units, and that there are 58 permanent supportive housing units and 143 affordable housing units. And we are taking a phased approach so that the permanent supportive housing, or PSH units, are the priority to get up first, and the affordable units following those units. So let's dive into the proposed schedule. And next slide, please. So in our draft timeline, by the end of this month, we're expecting to Step Up finalize the purchase to acquire the property from Partnership Homes, Inc. And as was mentioned, we did provide them with several documents, including a purchase agreement on Friday. They came back with some edits. So our various attorneys are going to go back and forth, but I feel positive they're not significant. Most of them are small changes, and we can work through any other changes. We've engaged an escrow and title company, so we're planning to close on the property by mid-March. And over the next 6 months or so, we'll work with the city and the technical review committee on all the requirements for the new purpose and new project on the site, for any rezoning that's needed and any approvals that are needed from the city to ensure. So that will be a multi-month process that we'll be going through. We expect sometime during the summer to demolish the existing structure on the site. The city graciously boarded it up and fenced it up so it is secure, and we'll be working on a permit to demolish the existing structure between now and the summer. And then we put in the fall that it'll be a discussion with our team and the city about the possible use of the site as a winter shelter for the pallet housing. So we're certainly sensitive to the issue that the city needs a winter shelter. This site was used in the past as a winter shelter, and we are committed to looking at that very seriously to use that site, especially since it'll be a vacant site having demolished the existing structure. And then we get into the more detail. So we are planning to go for tax credit financing from the state, and there are a couple rounds. So the next round that we could be ready for is in January of next year. And we'll submit Slate and Step Up will submit tax credit application to the state for tax credit funding for the permanent supportive housing component of the project, the 58 units. We know that if we win the award, we'll be notified in late summer. That's the August 31st date of the tax credit award by the state. And again, as you see the asterisk, subject to market conditions and any changes in the deadlines and process. Obviously, we don't control that, but this is our intention. And if there aren't any changes, then this is a schedule we'll plan to pursue. And then in the first quarter, so about 4 or 5 months will go by, and we'll start construction. We'll close the financing and actively move forward on the construction. Next slide. I apologize, I've neglected to put this in. We expect the construction to be about a year, so that would put us in opening the PSH somewhere in the first or second quarter of 26. And we will submit also in the January round of 26 the tax credit application for the affordable phase 1. And then in January, because remember, those are quite a number of units, 143. And then in January of the following year, we'll submit for the tax credits for the phase 2. And the construction duration for both of those would be about 18 to 24 months. Of course, we'll do everything we can to reduce it to the construction time frame. But that would put us into 26 and 27 for the total completion of the 201 units of the project. But it means that we could be looking at the PSH units up in 26 and all the affordables in 26, and by 27 be complete and people moving into the units. I can't see on my Zoom. Brian, are you with us? Brian Vetter from Slate? So I just wanted to see if he wanted to add any detail to the project. This is our, excuse me, our proposed time frame, and happy to answer any questions on this.
So I do want to check with council. I know council may have some questions, but we are not taking any action on this today. So there is someone who signed up to speak for it, and I wanted to see what the feeling was of council. Personally, I think it should wait until we are at the point to where we're actually taking a vote, but this is just informational, so I would prefer that the speaker wait until we are actually going to be taking a vote. Thank you. And did it...
But is there a reason why it's not on an agenda? Because we knew it was coming in 2 weeks anyway? And
so this was just informational because, if I recall correctly, they were asked to bring something back within 2 weeks, some kind of timeline. Isn't that correct?
It was posted as an agenda item under the city manager's report.
Yes. So it's just informational at this point.
So technically it is an agenda item because his report is an agenda item.
But it's not one we're taking action on.
But we don't always take an action.
Oh, the speaker was fine. He said he would come when the vote would be taken. Yeah. Is that okay with council? You think, I don't think we need to take a vote?
If the speaker's fine, that's fine.
Yes, the speaker was fine. Thank you. So are there any questions? Yes, Mr. Matheny was first. Do I hear anyone else?
Yeah, after him.
Okay. Are you after? Okay. Zach, you were first.
Were you just looking at that slide, or did you?
I'm formulating my question.
So go ahead, Mr. Matheny, and then Mrs. Thurman, then Mrs. Hightower. Is that the order?
What do we call you? Mayor
Presiding officer.
Thank you, Mary Kay.
Thank you. That'll be fine.
Madam Mary Kay. Again, this process is the most confusing process I've seen. We've got phase 1 and phase 2 on the page, the second page, but you really, I guess, have 3 phases. So the PSH is phase 1, then the phase 2 would be another, and the phase 3. So did I hear that correctly? The city just invested more dollars on the Regency Inn by boarding it up?
Sorry, what was the question? That the city...
Did we just invest more dollars in the Regency Inn and boarding it up? That's what the statement was by Mr. Lipka, that the city did them a favor by boarding it up.
There wasn't a favor given. We had complaints. We had over 250 complaints on the property being unsecured over the last 24 months, and it was going through regular code processes, so we reached out to the property owner. They did not secure the property, so in keeping with traditional and policy-related processes for code, we secured the property. So that's a typical...
That cost go back to Partnership Homes?
That cost transfers with the property.
Okay.
Excuse me, Councilwoman Abuzawaita, I'm online. I'm with you.
All right, do I hear a motion to allow Mayor Pro Tem Johnson back in to the meeting? All right, second.
That all depends on
all
what
in
she's
favor
gonna
say
say.
aye. That passes unanimously. Welcome.
Thank you.
So on this timeline, we began this discussion on Regency, what year?
It was August 2022.
But is that when the city gave the debt in 22?
That was the very beginning of the very end of 2021.
21. So when did the discussion of Regency Inn actually start?
It would have been September, October 2021.
We made a decision, y'all made a decision in 30 days to loan $3.1 million? I find that hard to believe. That can't be right. We've never done anything that fast. But that's irrelevant. So I'm looking at this timeline. Why, and I saw the emails going back and forth today between Brian Bird, the attorney that represents Partnership Homes, and the questions that they had, and I'm not going to get into the minutia of that. But my question would be, the property has been empty for 11 months. Had we taken ownership or some other capacity, we could have demoed the property by now. Why is it going to take 4 months to demo something that we know needs to be demoed? Can we not do that faster? In other words, I really don't like the thought process of having the way that this timeline reads is really disappointing. We've owned the property, it's empty, we're boarded it up, but we should just taken it down instead of putting boards on it. Then, quite frankly, when they presented to us in May of 2023, why didn't Step Up or whoever, why would we not have applied for the tax credit this January versus next January versus January 25 and then January 26? Why can't we get that done sooner, and why don't we tear the building down?
So as it relates to demolitions, if we were to follow our internal processes for demolition, you're looking at, there's asbestos testing that has to happen. That's a 30-day process, no matter what, just based on the age of the structure. And then the second part of that, depending on whether there's asbestos or not, you're looking at about 90 days. If we do it internally, that's our typical turnaround time for a demolition. So 4 months versus 3 months is kind of what the comparison you're making.
You know, I find that hard to believe, again, because the News and Record promised us, and they have asbestos in that building, that the buildings would be torn down within 30 to 60 days. So why would it take us 4 months? And my point is, can we get something done faster? Because if this is going to be an area where pallet homes can be utilized, let's get the building torn down and let them be utilized during the summer months, because people need housing in summer months just as they need housing in winter months.
I understand that. But however, though, I want us to level set here, understanding that Step Up doesn't own that site. So there's only so much they could do outside of working towards closing. I would say Partnership Homes has a huge responsibility in how we've come this far. And that's really why we've been trying to accelerate transfer of property ownership to Step Up within the last 2 weeks. We think we came so close over the weekend, and I think we're almost there. And so there's only so much you can do if you're not a property owner, and that's until we take.
Which was my whole point
once we
throughout
do,
this whole process is let's own the property that we have debt on, and we could have knocked this thing down 6 months ago or 8 months ago, and Step Up, if they knew they were going to go for permanent supportive housing tax credits in May of 2023 when they presented to us, why did they not put forth that application for January last month if they knew? Now granted the plans changed, but the PSH didn't change. It's always 50 years.
So at that time, the issue would have been site control. And the piece I also didn't mention in terms of us doing a demo, and believe me, if I thought we could get it down quicker, I'd be the first one saying, let's do it. But I appreciate Tony pointing out, from a legal aspect, we have to have an order to demo legally, and that's another 90 to 120 days. So for us to do it is probably 4 to 6 months because of the processes we have to go through in order to do that. So for them to come back with 4 months for a demo, I think is completely reasonable considering asbestos and lead testing.
But if we got a quote, 2 quotes within the next 2 weeks, which is obviously easy to do. You've got D.H. Griffin, I can't remember the other company that's quoting. They were out at the News and Record site today because I talked to that folks. If we concurrently ran parallel paths of getting quotes to demo the building, and then they go through the process of closing, well, we didn't lose 30 days on getting quotes. Step Up takes ownership on or before 3/15, then you're that much faster. So I think, and it would be on there since they had the ownership.
Right.
So it's not the city doing it, it would be them. And if they needed the money, then take a portion of the 3.1 and pay them to tear the building down so we can begin, if this is a true partnership, and I don't mean that as in Partnership Homes, I mean partnership with Step Up and permanent supportive housing, then we can do that. We can make that fast. I guarantee you D.H. Griffin or whoever else could get that building down within the next 30 to 45 days. And then we begin clearing the site, asbestos included, and then you can do the partnership of the pallet homes during the summer to give housing. So that's a thought. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that the PSH wasn't. You've got 3 stages, 25, 26, and I guess 27 that we're going to apply, or they are going to apply. So folks, you know, we're talking about 201 units that aren't going to be online until, if you look at, okay, hold on. So, you're too fast.
Sorry, I was trying to get to the right.
Go to that second page.
This one?
January 3rd, so you got, phase 1 is really the PSH, the permanent supportive housing. Phase 2 is the apartments, for lack of a better term, which would be January of 26, which doesn't get awarded until August of that year. And then instead of putting January of the year, January 2027, they craftedly put January of the year following, which is the same thing as January 2027. And so that wouldn't get approved, which would technically be phase 3, until August of 2027. So we're sitting here talking about a project that's going to be almost a decade. I'm just saying, I'm trying to figure out how to fast track this thing. I mean, that's what this is looking at. So there's so many issues with this. And I'm sure y'all are copied on all the emails back and forth between them, and I hadn't had time to decipher what is real and not. Those are just some issues I have that I wrote down while the presentation was going on. It still continues to disappoint me, and I hope that we can be strategic and come up with a better timeline and a better plan to be proactive to house the folks that need housing.
Maybe I can respond to that a little bit. I think I'd like to correct the notion that this will have taken 11 years. I don't think that that's a proper characterization, considering that ownership hasn't changed hands, and that's what we're working on. While it is true that Regency might have been there for a while, we all know, I wasn't here, but we all knew going into this that this would be a bear of a project to do. The notion of demolishing everything was not something we even talked about. It was about rehabbing this to make it ready for 58 units of permanent supportive housing, which is still relevant. But once you start talking about adding another 143 units, and you're talking about 201 units built over a period of 18 to 24 months, I think that's actually fast. Because we have had apartments in this city that I know of, including downtown, that have taken more than 4 years to do, with site vacant for 5. And so I'm not making excuses for step up, but I think that the last line on that last page, on that last slide, the last row rather than the last slide, is what's telling. From March 15 of 2024, if they're able to close on this and take ownership, what they're saying is that they anticipate construction duration per phase to be between 18 to 24 months. What's missing, which
Mr.
I believe...
Manager, hold on. I'm sorry, and I just told one of my fellow council members, I won't say anything unless I have to have a reason to say something. That's per phase. There's 3 phases. They won't get approved. If they get approved, they will not be approved until August of 2027. Therefore, it's 18 to 20 months after August 2027. So that puts it in 2029, which I would argue that this process started either 2019 or 2020, because there's no way the city would have given $3.1 million in 30 days to loan this. So that's my point. That's a misleading. It says per phase. You've got 3 phases. So that's a 6-year build out.
But then you also...
On 201 units.
You also have to remember that, if I recall, and Mr. Lipka can correct that, but I think he had said earlier on, the first phase of delivery of the projects of 58 units will happen in 2026.
The 58 units of permanent supportive housing.
And that, to me, meets that intent. So I think that's what we need to start thinking of. So if you were to get your LIHTC in, of course, get control of the site, you do the environmental work, you get your LIHTC application in, you can actually, a year and a half from now, from today, have your 58 units delivered. That does not mean that you're not prepping for the remaining 143 units simultaneously while you're working on those 58 units. You can be doing things like site review, plan reviews, all of the things that come with it. I do get what there are areas here where we can shave off some time, so I understand what Councilman Matheny is saying. For example, the demolition, maybe we can shave a month or so off of that, we don't know. Expedited review process, you might be able to shave a couple months off of that, but it all depends on when everything closes and we're able to. But I think that if you're thinking a year and a half from now, those 58 units can be delivered, I think that answers a lot of the question with regards to that. And then what can we do? And that was a question I posed to our staff as well as Step Up today. What can we do in that year and a half to make sure that we can still use the site one way or the other to accommodate our homeless residents? being mindful that there may be environmental issues on site, and we do not want to accommodate homeless residents if there's an environmental issue that could impact their health. So that's something we're going to have to look carefully into, while at the same time we want to have that conversation with them.
Actually, the step-up would have to deal with that, because going back to the responsibility of the city, we don't own the property. So the environmental issues go with the new property owner. Now, we can help via some of the state requests that we might be able to put in on remediation. But, you know, Mr. Manager, on some of the things, I think you and I are talking the same language. On some of them, we probably respectfully disagree. I think one of the biggest things that still continues to bother me is this project is going to drag out. And if you go back, if we're looking at this page, affordable phase 1 tax credit submission date. Since they're dependent on the tax credit from the state, ladies and gentlemen, there's an opportunity or a chance they may not receive that funding. So what happens to this project then? And my fear is, because you get a lot of requests for tax credits. So if they get the permanent supporting tax credit, maybe they get one more on the phase 1, as they call it. I call it phase 2. But then the state's like, well, we need to spread the wealth. We're not going to support this one on phase 2. We've got this other project that has more units. So there's an opportunity that they might not get not one project, not 2 projects. They might not get any of the 3 projects. Then what does the city have? Step Up owns land at the Regency Inn, affectionately called. And we have zero ability to do really anything. And there's an that's a worst case scenario, but it's a scenario. So this issue continues to be my nemesis.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Matheny. Mrs. Thurm.
Michelle just was getting ready to respond.
Okay, Michelle.
So I'd like to give her a chance.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly true. Tax credits are difficult, and it's a field, and it's always a process, right? And there's no 100% guarantee when we're applying for tax credits for a property. The worst case scenario, however, is we end up with 58 permanent supportive housing units and the remainder of the site undeveloped, which was what 2 years ago the overall goal was. So if we hit that goal, anything beyond that is a gain. If we don't go beyond that for whatever reason, something that none of us can imagine happens or never gets funding in place, there's no scenario where the 58 units aren't still there and we haven't accomplished the goal that you all set in front of us in 2021. So for me, that's the investment we made. That's the return that we know we're getting at this point that's not dependent on those processes. And I think that's the consideration.
Thank you. Mrs. Thurm? Sharon?
And then I'll...
Thank you. Well, there's several things here tonight. First of all, I appreciate y'all trying to run through stuff and come back in a couple weeks, because a couple weeks ago it was totally confusing. It's just a little bit more, it's maybe confusing tonight as well. And I will touch on the tax credit application, because if in fact it doesn't go through, what is the backup plan? Because if that's the backup plan, should be the original plan, because the original plan was to develop the 58 units of permanent supportive housing, which it was not 2 years ago. It was about 4 years ago, because, Mr. Matheny, you were not here. So, and your predecessor, who was here, was totally against this. He's been gone for a minute. So I'd like to really, I think we need to be very clear about when this conversation really started, because it's not been 2 years. It's been longer than that. Because I've been waiting and didn't know when Partnership Home didn't do it. And then we were presented Step Up. And Ms. Mary Kay, let me clear this up for you, because you said it last time. There was never an RFP to develop that property. Never. There was an RFP for the vouchers, but it was a never. So did not go out to anyone. They were presented to us as the answer to a prayer, and it's still not answered. And I think the greater piece of it for me is the fact that the prayer we're trying to answer is for people to be housed. And that just seems to be taking quite a long time, the homeless population. Government or not, it's taking a minute, and that concerns me. When you talk about demo, Ms. McCray, how long did it take us to demo Hampton Elementary, which is down, by the way? It's gone. And the city acquired it a year ago, and it's down. And it had asbestos in it, and it's got some contamination on one side of the site.
It's a little bit bigger than this building. A whole lot.
Yeah, it is a lot bigger. But that building is now down, and it has been demoed. So demo does not have to take that long. From bid time to the time it came down. You can answer or not, but I'm part of the process, so I know how long it took. The other piece, I just really want to be clear on what is it going to take to get across the finish line for this project. It's going to take more money, because that's what I hear. Because if the tax credits don't go through, if you don't have a backup plan, then the city becomes your backup plan. And we just saw recently where CDBG money got used on a project that nobody knew about, but it showed up, 1.5, and it was done. So are we going to find ourselves in that kind of situation? I'm concerned about that. I don't think we should put pallet homes on a contaminated spot. If the property is to the magnitude that the building has got to come down because there are environmental issues now, then no, we should not be putting people in, again, I'm going to say people, into that situation. So I really would love to know what a plan is, because I see this on the timeline. I don't know if it's 3 phases or 2 phases or 1.5 phases, regardless of the phases, and they sound great. But it concerns me that we may be 6 years down the line before we can address any permanent supportive housing.
So I want to clarify first that the conversation about demolition of the building is not because the building is contaminated. It has to do with the structural integrity of the building.
I understand why the building come down. I understand the difference.
So I just wanted to be clear that it's...
Between contamination is typically land. So I get that. I got all that.
Right, I just want to be clear, it's a structural concern.
Well, that's the only reason why buildings come down. That's why the Heritage House is down structural. 54-page report that all had a lot of structural issues. I already know all that. But the fact of the matter is the building now has to come down, which means we're not going to be able to provide any permanent supportive housing for the chronically homeless that we keep hearing about. We ain't even touched on families and none of that. So I'd just like to have a little bit tighter timeline here. And I think that can be possible. Maybe I'm wishing on a star, but I think with the city attorney's office being involved, making sure there's been a phase, and I assume, Mr. Attorney, there's been phase 1 study done. There's been a phase 1 environmental, correct?
My understanding is the phase one done before we ever loaned money to PHI to buy the property. I believe maybe even a phase two was conducted. But I'm
Have we done a
confident
phase
that
two?
a phase one was done.
Because it sounds like a phase one has found some environmental issues that you now have, so you would need a phase two to determine that. Where is that cost going to be? Who's that going to be?
Step
Are
Up
we
has-
going to be expected to cover any of that?
That would be, again, my understanding, when we originally loaned the money, the city required that a phase one be conducted at that time. I'm not certain that that phase one indicated the need for a phase two. It seems apparent now from what we're hearing that Step Up in their due diligence has done a phase one, and Michelle's nodding, so I think I'm correct.
Yes.
I believe that the phase one has suggested the need for a phase two.
Correct.
That would be Step Up's obligation as the buyer in their due diligence to complete that phase two before they buy the property.
And that has been completed. There were some additional testing that was completed, I believe, a week, and I'll defer to Todd if he wants to speak towards any of those pieces.
Yeah, in the phase one analysis, we did do an on-site inspection, and we did see evidence of the potential for underground tanks. So that concerned us because that had not been turned up earlier. We did do a deeper inspection, and we suspect at this point that there's nothing in the tanks, if there are tanks, but there's outlets on the surface which suggest underground tanks. But at this point, we don't think there's anything in those tanks. That was the major concern.
And so would that phase two result, because I don't want them to say, well, now the city, you've given, because this really is not our property anyway. So we don't have any liability?
No, ma'am. So long as we don't take ownership, we're not in any chain of liability for environmental concern. And as far as I know, the deed of trust does not give us any liability for the environmental concerns, since we don't own the property.
And I still want to know how they're going to cross this finish line, because this timeline is really stretching out a long time. And my concern is the tax credits, and some of this may be the cart before the horse, but you got to have a backup plan, and the city can't be the backup plan.
Councilwoman Hightower, happy to go back and have additional conversations and bring back to you information on ways we might be able to condense the timeline and additional funding opportunities should the low-income housing tax credits not be an option. I think those are valid questions asked. I know that Todd is ready to have those conversations and happy to get more information back to you on that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hightower
Sorry,
and
Ms.
Michelle. Mrs. Thurm?
Can you go back a page? Zach mentioned the possibility or potential for putting the pallets there for the summer, if we can move the demolition back. I know there are some issues in terms of the insurance commissioner and when we can put them up, when we can't, the getting electricity, et cetera, routed, and there's some involvement in that. It would be my hope that we could at least research that and work with the insurance commissioner's office to see if that's a viable alternative for the summer. You know, in terms of the first year's winter, I don't know whether it's worth moving the electrical and all that investment that we made into the first property if we're just going to put up the same number of units. If there's an option to do more units or do something else there, then I could foresee wanting to do winter there. But I would certainly welcome summer shelter there if it's viable. But the reality is we got to start working on that now to see if that's an option, because I'm sure that will take time, and I know it took a couple months before. So, you know, the date of September 15th here in terms of possible winter shelter usage of the site, unless we have some alternative additional sites to house people, then I think that is kind of useless, even though I'm the one that asked for it. And thinking at it and seeing it on the calendar basis now, unless we have additional pop-ups, then it really doesn't make sense to do that and run all the necessary utilities to do that.
Yeah, it's a substantial investment to do that.
As others have said, I too am kind of disappointed that this looks like it's going to be pushed that far out. But I understand that a lot of this rests with the tax credits. It is my hope that also that during that January of 25 to August of 25, we could be pretty far along in terms of planning and permitting, and so that as soon as those tax credits are ready to go, that we could be breaking ground and possibly get started, if it's feasible, before Q2 of 2026. It's essential that we collapse this as much as we possibly can.
And I'll say too that, and Todd can speak to this as well, that Slate was really intentional about wanting to present to you all a timeline that they knew they could meet. Right. Their viewpoint on this, and I think rightly so, was don't present this super condensed time frame that may not be able to be a reality. And so they wanted to be conservative in their estimates. And again, Todd, if you want to chime in on any part of that, but I think that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yes.
Thanks, Michelle. I would like to comment on that. First, that's exactly right. And we are looking and hope to compress what's presented as phase 1 and phase 2, the affordable, in one tax credit application. But we're not sure we can do that, so we presented it as 2 different tax credit applications a year apart from each other. But we would like to go with one tax credit application for all the affordable in the first round, which would be in 26. So Michelle's exactly right. We didn't want to present something that we weren't sure we could meet. So we will look at every point to compress this time frame. But I would just tell you, historically, when we first came to Greensboro with Slate, we were looking at Slate using all of their capital to do the rehab of the property. And it's because we're a service provider. We're not the typical housing developer. I know exactly, and I sympathize with your frustration. It's all about getting people housed as quickly as possible because people are more likely to die on the street. So it's very frustrating for me, too, the existing system for financing housing. And we're going to go for tax credits, which will carry the bulk of the expense of the project. But this is the system that's there that we have to work in. It's not a system of our making, and certainly not of my satisfaction. It's a very slow, cumbersome system, unfortunately. And when we first came into Greensboro, we were trying to bring an innovative way of doing things to get housing on faster. But unfortunately, the world has, with interest rates, the cost of supplies, and the cost of labor from that point, that made that innovative approach less feasible. We will look to reduce these steps at any point, at every point that we can in terms of the time frame.
Thank you. The other point I want to make is this is for 58 units, and we all know that 58 units is not going to solve our problem of the unhoused in our community. And I think, we have got to continue to look for other opportunities and other options in addition to, because this was never going to solve the problem. If there is a pre-made building that becomes available, we certainly need to look at that too. I don't want to say that we are waiting until 2027 before we have any permanent supportive housing. I think we have other options. I think we need to continue to look at what other options are available to us, because this one project is not going to solve our problems, and we knew it wasn't going to solve our problems.
I think it's important, and maybe this is the right time to point out that earlier today we had a meeting with the Development Finance Institute through the School of Government to bring them on board to do some pre-development analysis and to help us to create a strategy around exactly that, we have a guiding document in Housing GSO. That's clear. We all know that. We know what the goals are. But to map land that's available, properties that are available, where the need is, costs of rents in specific areas, we don't have the internal bandwidth to do that relatively quickly. So we'll be working to get them on board with us to do that mapping and those types of analysis for exactly that purpose, so we can identify opportunities as soon as is possible to get more units off the ground.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Wells, and then I have Mr. Holston, and that's all I have right now.
I think at our last council meeting, I made the comment that it takes a long time for things to happen. I didn't think it was going to take this long, but I think we were all, I believe it was maybe 2017 or 18 that you and Tammy went to Charlotte, and they came back and they told us about this permanent supportive housing. And we adopted that, almost like a dream. This is what we want for Greensboro. Then we had some problems, and then this housing crisis has come up, and I think that's what motivates Councilman Matheny so much, because we do have lots of people on the streets, and the COVID came, and so it just made the problem worse. But I think the question is, do we want to have permanent supportive housing? We started out saying we wanted those 58 units. Do we still want the units? If we still want the units, and now the additional part with the other units for attainable housing, which is also an addition, but do we want it? If we want that, then I think we should just do as much as we can to make it happen. And we now know it's not going to happen overnight. But do we give up on having permanent supportive housing? Do we give up on having those extra units? Or are we just going to keep talking about how long it's going to take and give up? And so that's where I am. District 2, I've always said we need hope. So we can hope that we get this, and hope, it takes a bit of faith also that things will happen. First time I ran for city council, I said, where there's a will, there's wells. Because I thought that what I wanted to happen, I could make it happen. But it's not like that. But I do believe where there is a will, there is a way. And I believe that it can be worked out. But I think the question is, do we want to move forward with all of the things that may come up? We've just had one thing after another. Or do we just drop it? I think that's the real question.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. I have Mr. Holston and then Mrs. Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Mary Kay.
I'll take that.
People are dying on the streets. We don't own this property, but we do have a vested interest in the success of this project. At the last meeting, we talked about developing a plan. I think many of us said it, but I think my words were Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. And we have a timeline, and Todd, I do thank you and your team for providing that timeline. But in looking at the timeline, like others have stated, I do see that there are some weak links, maybe some choke points, some places where if everything doesn't go exactly right, then this conversation continues. Understanding that, yes, we agreed to the 58 units up front, and then the other 143 were kind of thrown in, and really appreciate that. It's just that as we talk about it, as we've had these conversations, we have people on the streets who are dying, who are the collateral damage, and it's incumbent upon us to do what we need to do to expedite this process at every step of the way. From the city standpoint, again, I'll say it, we do not own the property, but we do have the opportunity to step in. I would hope, Mr. City Manager, that in addition to the timeline, to the plan in front of us, that we would be providing that additional assistance along the way so that this process is expedited. But going to the point of the tax credits, or going into the project with our eyes wide open, what happens if the tax credits are not approved by the Housing Finance Agency? What is the total cost? In other words, eyes wide open. I look at this timeline in front of us, 3/15 to 10/1. I see work with the city and TRC on zoning and approvals. Do those approvals include additional funding by this body sitting up here? If so, what's the whole dollar amount that needs to go into it? And then, look at it in reverse order. What's it going to take to make it happen, and then start subtracting those tax credits? But the tax credits don't come off, then we know what the total picture is. Is the appetite with this council to afford that entire bill if the tax credits don't come through, if the timelines change, if the inflation takes the prices up, if the environmental is worse than what we're looking? So still, I'm looking for a better plan, a more comprehensive plan, one that has options, eyes wide open, maybe ugly, warts and all. Just throw it all in. We need to know the answer and need to know it quickly, because people are dying on the streets. We have a vested interest. We've got to do something, but we've got to do it smart, but we have to do it with all the information possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoffman?
Michelle, I just have one simple question. On the pallet homes, for the winter, my recollection is that the heater heated the area up to what, 50, 55 degrees, whatever.
It gets a little bit, right at 60, yeah.
Right, was it right at 60? Use during the summer, how do they function in the summer when we may have 100
When
degree
we purchase those, the same spot that's used for heat in the winter,
you get a reverse.
You put an AC in for the summer.
Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you.
Something quickly. We're allowed by Department of Insurance to install it for 180 days, but we really haven't used it for that long. It's
correct.
Mostly 3 months.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the Department of Insurance? Are you?
It's the Department of Insurance that makes the ultimate determination for lots of engineering inspection, things like that. And so their determination right now is that you have 180 consecutive days that you can use them per year. And we pled our case. We've done everything we can at a staff level to try to get that adjusted. Certainly with that restriction removed, a lot more things are possible. But as it stands right now, those are the parameters we're having to work under.
The restrictions, yes. Thank you.
We started on November 1st, and we will close out on the last day of March. I'm not good at math in my head, but about 120.
Great, thank you. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Anything else?
Yeah, I'll just say that we've heard you. We've made our notes, and Todd and Brian have also listened to what you had to say.
Sure.
We clean up the timeline. We understand the need for a comprehensive plan, so to speak, a backup plan. But those conversations will better be heard once we know there's a closing on this property. Then we can start having the direct conversation. We step up. So we would like to bring this back. Probably they said here it's about middle of March to close. So I'll suggest we come back at the end of March to council to give you an update as to where we are on this.
Great, thank you.
So,
go ahead, Mrs. Hightower.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem.
I was looking at the timeline. You say 3/15 step up closes on property, but you're going to come back at the end of March. So you're going to give them to the end of March to close?
I'm just saying that because, again, they're this close. There's a reason they have indicated here that end of February is when they envision to finalize purchase agreement. Our city attorney's office is working with us, and they are working with their respective attorneys. Hopefully everything is finalized by end of February, but I don't want to put Step Up also in an awkward position. Going by what they have here, if mid-March is what they're hoping to close, I'm offering to council that we can come to you at the end of March at that point in time to give you more information. Clean up this timeline, talk about LIHTC, talk about potential backup plans, whatever that may be.
Yeah,
And I think the city attorney wants to say something.
That shakes me a little bit, just simply because if you got a timeline already here, 3/15, that says you're going to close on property, but then you got to come back at the end of March and let us know if it did or didn't or whatever.
I'd like the city attorney to weigh in on that. What I'm just saying is to give council a periodic update is what I'm saying, not necessarily for anything else.
I anticipate to close, Step Up will need council's approval to assign your debt from PHI to Step Up. So if their anticipated closing date is mid-March, I would think they would need council's resolution to assign that debt before they close.
And that's fine. But with regards to other things on timeline, the LIHTC conversations, we can still come back to you after that.
So we can meet on March 4th. That's when we meet again, isn't it? 5th?
March 5th is when our meeting, and then the one after that is the 19th. Yes, yes. Thank you. Anything else on that? Hearing none, we will move on. Now is the time for consideration of the consent agenda. If anyone on council wishes to remove any items from the consent agenda due to a conflict of interest or for the purpose to vote no, do I hear anyone?
Move this consent agenda.
Oh, my goodness.
Second.
Thank you, Sharon. She's being easy on me.
She beat me to it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, okay. You confused me there. Council, please vote.
Councilmember Abuzawader, I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Mrs. Hoffman.
I did.
I'm sorry, I didn't state so. Council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson? Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, your vote? Yeah, she said yes. On Great, thank you. That passes unanimously. Now is the time for our public hearing agenda. Item number 1 and 2 will be read together. Public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for the property located at 3511 Randleman Road, .37 acres. Dionisio Vasquez Martinez. And item H2, public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 3511 Randleman Road, Dionisio Vasquez Martinez. Mr. Kirkman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Abuzawader, I guess is the best way to do that. Again, the request this evening is annexation and original zoning from County RS 30 residential single family to City R3 residential single family. North, east, and south of the request is zoned County RS 30 residential single family, and west of the request is zoned County RS 12, or actually RS 3 residential single family. The subject property currently contains a single family dwelling, and the purpose for the request this evening is to access city services for that existing dwelling. North, east, and south of the request are single family dwellings. West of the request are single family dwellings, as well as the common elements for the existing subdivision to the west. Yes. Oh, is it coming up? Good. All right. Property is currently designated as commercial on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan and as urban general on the future built form map. Staff has concluded this request does support the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the, filling our framework big idea to arrange our land uses where we live, work, attend school, shop, and enjoy our free time to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. The proposed R3 district accommodates low-density, single-family residential development of up to 3 dwelling units per acre and allows uses that are similar to existing uses in the surrounding area, and staff is recommending approval of these requests. The Planning and Zoning Commission heard these items on their January 8th agenda. They recommended approval of both items, and there are no speakers on this, so I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Mrs. Hightower?
I just have one quick question. Looking at the map, this house seems to be kind of isolated from, so this is non-contiguous, or is this, are the rest properties around them?
The primary corporate limits are to the north. You can see like north of Wolf Trail Road and then the interstate. But yes, this property is within our growth tier 1, so it is annexable. We can provide city services to it. And again, they are requesting city services, which then triggers the annexation requirement.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions?
No.
Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Can we see her? Mayor Pro Tem? Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
And did we get a vote from Mayor Pro Tem? I can't see her. She's mouthing yes usually, so.
Can you see her?
She can't get off mute. There she is. She just said yes, I can see.
Can we notate sign?
Yep, give her a sign. And that passes 9-0. And for item number 2, I need a statement of consistency. I need a motion and a second, please.
Move the item. Second.
Oh, that was a tie. Mrs. Hightower.
I'm not letting him have anything today.
Motion by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Mr.
treated
Holston.
me
Mrs.
this
Hightower,
morning.
statement of consistency, please.
Thank you, ma'am. The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for the property at 3511 Random Road from County RS 30 to, which is residential single family, to City R3 residential single family 3, to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 comprehensive plan, and considers this action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan future built form, map, and future land use map. The proposed City R3 zoning district permits uses that fit the content of surrounding area and limits negative impact on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
There she is. Thank you. And the vote is, that carries 9-0. Let's see, item number H3, public hearing for an ordinance annexing territory into the corporate limits for the property located at 5226 Summit Avenue and a portion of Summit Avenue right-of-way, 1.0 acres, Juan Alvarado and City of Greensboro. And item H4, public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 5226 Summit Avenue and a portion of Summit Avenue right-of-way, Juan Alvarado and the City of Greensboro. Mr. Kirkman?
Yes, thank you. Again, the request is annexation and original zoning. The current zoning is County RS 30, which is residential single family, and the zoning being requested from the city is City R3, residential single family. North, east, and south of the request is currently zoned County RS 30. West of the request is zoned County RS 30 and City CDRM 12, conditional district residential multifamily. The subject property contains a house that is currently under construction and is seeking to access city services, which is what's triggering the annexation this evening. North and south of the request are also single-family dwellings. East of the request is agricultural land, and west of the request are single-family dwellings and undeveloped land. This property is designated as residential on the future land use map of the comprehensive plan and as urban general on the future built form map. Staff has concluded this request does support the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the filling in our framework big idea to arrange our land uses where we live, work, attend school, shop, and enjoy our free time to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. The proposed R3 zoning accommodates low-density, single-family detached residential development of up to 3 dwelling units per acre and allows uses that are similar to the existing uses in the surrounding area, and staff is recommending approval of the requests. Planning and Zoning Commission heard these requests at their January 8th meeting and recommended approval of both the annexation and the original zoning, and there were no speakers at that meeting. I can answer any questions.
No one signed up for the public hearing, so I would entertain a motion to approve H3.
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Do I hear a second? Second. Seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Mayor Vaughn, did she vote? She voted. Thank you. So this H4 requires statement of consistency. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, do you have that to read?
The Greensboro City Council believes that, hello?
Go ahead, go ahead.
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for the property identified at 5226 Summit Avenue and a portion Summit Avenue right-of-way described as east of Summit Avenue and north of Highcomb Road from County RS30 residential single family to City R3 residential single family to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 comprehensive plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future build format and future land use map. And secondly, the proposed City R3 zoning district permits uses that fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impact on the adjacent properties. And 3, the request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area, and it has been and will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Thank you. I would wow, I already have that motion. Council, please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
She voted on the screen? Great, thank you. That passes 9-0. Thank you so much. Item number H5 and H6 and H7 will be read together. Public hearing for an ordinance annexing the property located at 1873, 1875, and 1879 Cood Road, 8110 Tanya Lane, and a portion of Cood Road right-of-way, 110.59 acres. And item H6, public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 1873, 1875, and a portion of 1879 Cood Road, and all of 8110 Tanya Lane. Tom Terrell for Chris Raleigh of Pooled Home Company, LLC. And item H7, public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for a portion of 1879 Cood Road and a portion of Cood Road right-of-way, Joanne T. Parrish and City of Greensboro. Mr. Kirkman?
Yes, thank you. Again, the request is original zoning and annexation from County AG Agricultural to City Planned Unit Development, PUD, and City R5. And I would note on the map that the majority of this request is for that planned unit development that is located on the west side of Coode Road. There is a small remnant piece of this parcel that is located on the east side of Coode Road, and that's why it's being assigned a different zoning classification. North of this request, excuse me, is zone County AG Agricultural, County RS40 Residential Single Family, and City CDR5 Conditional District Residential Single Family. Each of these properties is zoned City CDR5 and County AG. South of the properties is zoned County AG, and west of the subject property is zoned a combination of County AG and County RS40 Residential Single Family. The subject property currently contains undeveloped land, agricultural land, single-family dwellings, and a portion of Coode Road right-of-way. North, east, and south of the request are single-family dwellings as well as undeveloped land. West of the request are single-family dwellings, undeveloped land, and a drainage easement. The adopted Western Area Plan designates this property as agricultural, and on the future-built form map of the comprehensive plan, it is designated currently as exurban. This is a conditional zoning application, so there is one condition associated with this request. Staff has concluded that this request does support the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the Building Community Connections goal to maintain stable, attractive, and healthy places to live and raise families. Proposed PUD and R5 zoning district designations allow a mixture of residential uses that are complementary to the surrounding area and expand housing choices in close proximity to a major highway and larger institutional use. Staff is recommending approval of these requests. These items were heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their January 8th meeting. The commission voted to support all of these items. There was one speaker in favor and none in opposition at that meeting. I can answer any questions.
Thank you. So now is the time for the public hearing. We do have 2 in favor and 1 in opposition. Let's see. So there will be 15 minutes in favor, 15 minutes in opposition, and 5 minutes for each rebuttal. So would those in favor please come forward?
Thank you. I'm Tom Terrell, 230 North Elm Street here in Greensboro, representing Pulte Home Company. Here with Pulte are Mr. Kenneth Binkley and Kai Bunker, and we also have with us, thank you, I appreciate that. We also have Dion Brown with Davenport Engineering. If there are transportation questions, I don't think we will need the entire 15 minutes. Now, the interesting thing about this site is that it's in the Western Area Plan, which, if you actually read the Western Area Plan, does have some language saying that right up above the airport we ought to be having farms. This plan is a little bit out of date, but there is also a lot of language in there that's very consistent with this project, which is a 3.37 unit per acre project. The Western Area Plan was started in 2011, and since we did that, the whole world in this part of Greensboro, all around us, has changed. In addition to that agriculture language that's in the Western Area Plan, we did actually say to ourselves back in 2013, we should be marketing the Western area as a logistics hub. We knocked that out of the park. We said we should attract the aviation-related industry. We knocked that ball out of the park. We should improve the transportation network. Well, Highway 68 and then I-73 have now been built. We have knocked that out of the park. We have done all sorts of infrastructure improvements, and every time we have done this, the growth pressures on other parts of that western area have changed. These are some of the names of the companies that we have been extremely successful in bringing into the orbit of Greensboro. Every single time we have brought one of these companies in and hit a home run, people need a place to live, and we can't keep pace. This is not something I'm telling you for the first time. We all know it. We hear it on a regular basis. I gave you some of this information right here about a little over a year ago on another project, but believe it or not, we have put close to $250 million into public investment in this part of our county. And we have been very successful at this, and there is more growth that's coming. For the picture that's worth 1,000 words, I want you to see this. This is the 10,000-foot view. The tract is in the upper left-hand corner, but you see how close it is to all the new highways that are here, and with a good slingshot, you can almost hit one of the runways for the airport. If you go down a little bit closer, you can see that there already are low-density single-family subdivisions to the east and to the south. This is a pattern of growth that's already been here. And if you look down in that right corner, there are at least two, there might be three, RM26 zonings where we have lots of apartments. And I only put this here if we have to go in closer, but that teeny little parcel that's on the other side of Coode Road, it can't be built upon. There was a lot of discussion about that at the zoning commission. If we have to come back to see the site plan or the concept plan, they are here. I did want to show you one chart from the traffic study. There will be more traffic in this part of Greensboro and the county. There has already been more traffic. We have invited this traffic. We are bringing in the companies that are generating this. But the surprising thing, if you look here at the 2031 no build and then come down to, if you can see where that cursor is, the projected modeled time delay, if you're on the road directly across from Coode Road coming out of that subdivision, it's going to take you 10.6 seconds to get out. And that's without this project being built. But the modeling shows, and then you go over to where my cursor is, that if this subdivision is built with the transportation improvements that Davenport says should be made, and they will be made, there is only a 2.8 second added delay. So right there at the site, there is not a huge impact. All of these changes and these recommendations will be implemented. We had a very strong communication effort with the neighbors. We did a 7-page letter. We had charts, graphs, photographs. There was little left to be discussed. We had 2 meetings, not one. Only 6 people came. We had one person call, gave them my cell phone, and they said they were okay with it. It was very cordial, and it was a very good discussion. This is our presentation. We're glad to answer any questions that you might have, and if you need the representatives from Pulte, they're here too.
Thank you, Mr. Terrell. Are there any questions? Thank you. We do have one person in opposition. Well, we have another person in favor. Is that someone with, is Dion? Is that the person with Pulte Homes?
She's with Davenport.
Okay. Thank you. I have one person in opposition then, Mr. Paul Drager. I hope I said your name correctly.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to this group about this proposed rezoning. It's 100 acres. It's fairly adjacent to a community that I live in, the Quail Creek community. The first we became aware of this rezoning, in my community at least, was when that yellow posting was posted on the road, not more than maybe a week ago, week and a half ago, maximum 2. And I need to take the group back just for a minute to the early 2000s. folks from Quail Creek worked closely with the park folks, along with a number of the county commissioners, Keith Holliday, Ed Kitchen. We worked with a number of folks. We met with them repeatedly about the zoning questions pertaining to the I-73 introduction to the community. It was going to have a huge footprint, and the zoning was being revisited at the time. We had spoken with them about the fact that Colfax had residential presence in it, and there were a number of houses that had recently been built. The zoning that came out of that was to indicate that Quail Creek would be what's the term? It's non-dense residential. It would be a roomy residential development, and the surrounding area would be agricultural. And we were great with that because, in all honesty, we were looking at the growth of the airport and thinking that we were going to get surrounded by commercial and industrial operations, and agricultural sounded pretty good to us, and the fact that we were zoned residential was exciting. We figured that that residential thing wasn't just a bubble around Quail Creek, but it was a bubble around that greater community in that area. There are about 80 houses, I believe, in Quail Creek, plus or minus a few. There's 2 developments in there. They're 1-acre lots, and I don't know about residential zoning, but I know that dense and non-dense, we're using non-dense as 1/3 of an acre per home, and that is not in line with most of the building that's been taking place in that area, and I'm using the term that greater area. Most of the Northwest community has been growing in half-acre, acre lots, and we're concerned about the level, the taxing that we're going to be put on infrastructure. We're concerned on that capacity. That transportation issue, the roads in that area are curvy. They are 2-lane. There are no shoulders. And we're already having travel issues. We've had 3 large apartment complexes put up in the very close proximity. Now the I-73 is in place. And that's great. We've been watching Summerfield fight diversified housing. That doesn't make sense. But what we're concerned about here is both this proposal, but also the proposals that are going to come in with the 6 or 7 comparably large parcels that have been cleared and are being sold. I have no idea what the status is of those planning efforts. I have no idea where they're at in conversations with you all. They haven't been posted. They've been cleared. If those get developed in a similar light to what they're proposing here, along with those 3 apartment complexes, 1930 is going to be way, way too late for any level of transportation accommodation. And it ain't going to be the turn lanes that they're proposing it's going to require. It's going to be stoplights, it's going to be additional lanes, and it's going to be driving another road because this curviness at 45 has been dangerous since I moved in. So I'm concerned at the level of planfulness and the level of transparency because we just found out about this. My community is fairly diligent. I'm surprised that we didn't know about this, but we didn't. I'm hopeful that the residents inform this decision. I don't know the 6 people that showed up that were cordial, but our community isn't. We're concerned very much at the introduction of this on top of the other developments, and we are comparably concerned about those other developments. If we're intentionally putting a couple of these as 3rd acres, and a couple of these as half acres, and a couple of these as 1 acres, great. But if we put 1/3 acre developments and apartments into the rest of those open lots, open parcels, we're going to have a mess. And that's all I wanted to share. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Terrell, is there anything yet? Your cane, sir.
Yes, sir. I was excited. Very, very briefly.
Oh, there's water, there's wetlands on the property as well. And I'm optimistic that that's been scrutinized.
Thank you.
I know it needs to be.
Thank you.
we're always concerned when people say they did not get any information on a rezoning, but they did see a sign. We just looked up Mr. Drager's property, and he's more than twice the notification distance away, and that's why he did not get the letter that we sent out. I just only want to point out one thing, and that is that with respect to a curve in Coode Road, just about every road up anywhere has some curves in it. But neither GDOT nor NCDOT have raised any concerns about the condition of Coode Road. Davenport's study did not raise any concerns about the condition or the ability of Coode Road to carry the traffic.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mrs. Hightower?
Yeah, Mr. Terrell, I understand roads have curves, but there were no improvement. This is 100 acres. Am I reading that right?
This is 111 acres, yes.
So how many, what are you planning? I know your Pulte is going to build, but what are your estimate of housing?
How many houses?
How many do you figure? I know
there are 375 total units by condition, so we're measuring by the absolute high number, but it's anticipated that the number will probably be somewhere less than that.
Is it just all single family?
Single family and some townhomes. There will not be any apartments. The density using the highest number is 3.37 units per acre, which I think if you asked Mr. Kirkman or Ms. Schwartz, they would tell you that's very low density.
And no road improvements, no?
Oh yes, there are improvements.
Because I didn't see.
Let me.
Your condition went by kind of. You only have one.
I don't have access to my PowerPoint. Wait a minute, maybe this is it.
When the PowerPoint came up, I didn't see.
Let me show you that. Oh, we do, sorry. Mr. Kirkman's putting this back up. But bottom line is there are, go back one more, there we go.
See, it said no.
Yes.
Improvements are, okay, on that one, okay. But you are going to, okay, because it went by kind of quick.
That's right. There has to be a dedicated left turn lane going in and a deceleration lane for traffic coming south.
Okay.
And if you have anything more specific than that, I would ask Ms. Brown to explain.
Well, I see a couple of the roads don't need improvements, but is that where on Coode Road and Sandoval, I guess is what it
yes,
is? Is that where the majority of your properties are going to be concentrated? Is there going to be more than one way in and one way out?
Yes, let me go back to the site plan. This shows actually two points of access right here, but the one that I'm showing you right here is across the street from Sanford's Creek, and that's why I emphasize that is because there would be another subdivision coming into Coode Road at the same time. And that, of course, you know, that's what transportation departments require. Instead of having an offset access points, they meet up on opposite sides of the same road.
Okay. No traffic lights or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Just your...
That's correct.
Okay.
Good turn lanes with good storage in them.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. When you say 100 acres, I was just like, there's got to be some improvement, something here. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Halston.
Halston, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Terrell. You mentioned earlier that it'd be about
3.37.
3.37 units per acre. And just help me out here. That portion of the property that you're not using, is it? Are there some watershed or?
Yes, there are wetlands in this area. Okay. There are some streams and wetlands, and of course they have to maintain the statutorily required setbacks.
So then more than likely, there would not be any additional construction on those?
There would not be any
Yes.
construction
Okay.
on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Dreger, did you want to say anything in opposition? You have 5 minutes.
I would say that safety is relative. And I know I've seen cars on the side of the road that run off that road doing 45. So there are turns on that road beyond the turn that's the Sanford third lane for turning purposes. There are twists on that Coode Road area that have concerned me since my arrival. It's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. And with the oncoming traffic and people that don't know the road, the introduction of I-73 and the introduction of those new apartments has already caused a few scares for at least people that I know. The addition of this may be a done deal. I can't tell that. Seems like it's gone very far down the pike to push back. But the future ones, if we keep building this kind of stuff without the infrastructure, because we're by I-73, the people that I'm living with are saying they're moving. So I'm not threatening that. I'm just conveying a message. We moved here for what we've experienced, and I've lived there for the last 20 years. Zach, I interviewed you once. It's been a great place to live. It was a good experience. It's been a great place to live, and I've loved the rural nature of it. But we're not going to preserve it with development like that if that's what we're going to develop alone and not intersperse the kind of stuff that we've been building and developing for the last 20 years out there. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure if it does pass and is annexed in, that our GDOT staff and public safety will be looking at the safety of the road.
The one thing I would ask this body before I step down is the transparency on the intention to annex. My entire community knows that Greensboro logically would annex us, or Oak Ridge might annex us, or Summerfield might annex us. But we've been unincorporated for a long, long time. Greensboro is going to be right on our border now. We don't know what your plan is. We can't tell what the expansion plan is. We don't know what the intent is to do with those large tracts of land that are being cleared around us. A little transparency would go a long way with our group.
Thank you. Yes, by the way, we cannot annex you in. Okay, Mrs. Thurm?
I was just going to say that we can't tell you what's going to happen with those tracts because we can't annex them. We can only respond to requests for annexation.
That's the county commissioners then.
So we are unable to tell you what's going to happen with those tracts. At this point, we have to look at the project that's before us now. Each as a project, if we were to be approached about another annexation, we would have to look at that in terms of the situation at that point in time. We're limited to looking at this, is this the highest and best use for the property, and that's what we have to go with. And again, I'm sorry that you feel that we aren't transparent. It's because we don't know any more than you do.
Well, it's zoned agricultural right now. So if it's zoned agricultural, I'm surprised when I see that pop up without much notice. And zoning agricultural must mean a holding tank for development to come in and say they want to build large developments. It's zoned agricultural now. I don't get it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mr. Thaney. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Move the item.
And Mayor Vaughn?
Second.
Mrs. Thurm moved the item for the annexation on H5. Mr. Holston seconded. Council, please vote. I got tongue-tied, I'm sorry.
Vote on the closing the public hearing.
No, we already voted on, that was by acclamation.
Quick statement.
Yes.
Mr. Manager, Ms. Schwartz, I will say this, just looking at the map, GIS, Mr. Drager, you're going to have more development coming around you.
Yeah.
So just looking at the map, I think it's great that you came down and spoke, but I would just keep an eye on it. And I think it's going to be something the city and the county have to work together on the infrastructure of the roads, because looking at it, I zoomed in on the road, and it is tight. We need the housing. This is a good opportunity for housing, and so I'm certainly supportive, but I'm just telling you, don't let your guard down, because it's coming.
Thank you. Any council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Thank you. Has everyone voted? I submitted it. You can go. And that passes 9-0. Item H6 requires statement of consistency. Do I hear?
Move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mr. Holston. Mrs. Thurm?
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for the property identified as 1873, 1875, and a portion of 1879, Cood Road, and 8110 Tanya Lane from County AG to City PUD to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed PUD zoning district as condition permits use that fits the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approvals in the public interest.
Council, please vote.
Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
That passes 9-0. Item H7 also requires a motion and a statement of consistency.
Move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mr. Holston. Mrs. Thurm?
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the original zoning request for the property identified as a portion of 1879 Cood Road and a portion of the Cood Road right-of-way from County AG to City R5 to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed City R5 zoning district as condition permits uses that fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
That passes 9-0. Thank you very much. Item number 8, H8, public hearing for an ordinance annexing the property located at 5309 Hilltop Road, 3.24 acres. Amanda Hodiern for Joe Ryerson Reynolds of the Hallie H. and Roy L. Ryerson Irrevocable Trust. And item H9, public hearing for an ordinance for original zoning for 5309 Hilltop Road. Amanda Hodiern for Joe Ryerson Reynolds of the Hallie H. and Roy L. Ryerson Irrevocable Trust. Mr. Kirkman?
Yes, thank you. Again, the request is for annexation and original zoning from County AG Agricultural to City CDRM 18, Conditional District Residential Multifamily. North of this request is currently zoned County RS 40 Residential Single Family. East, south, and west of the request is Zone City CDRM18 Conditional District Residential Multifamily. The subject property currently contains a single-family dwelling. North of the request are single-family dwellings. East, south, and west of the request is the Griffin Community Park and Recreation Center. Property is designated as residential in the future land use map of the comprehensive plan and is urban general. Oops, sorry. That's the wrong slide, but it is urban general, designated in the future built form map. There is a condition associated with the request as shown on the screen. Staff has concluded that this request does support the comprehensive plan's Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices, and the filling in their framework, big idea, to arrange our land uses for where we live, work, attend school, shop, and enjoy our free time to create a more vibrant and livable Greensboro. Proposed CDRM18 district is intended to accommodate duplexes, twin homes, townhomes, cluster housing, and other residential uses at a density of 18 units per acre or less. The request allows uses that are compatible with the existing residential uses in the surrounding area, and staff is recommending approval of the request. I can answer questions. Oh, I should note the Zoning Commission did hear this request at their January 8th meeting. They recommended approval of both items. There was one speaker in favor and none in opposition. And now I can answer any questions.
Move the item.
Seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, no speakers, no. Council, please vote.
Multifamily, I'm not sure exactly what the configuration is.
Mayor Vaughn? Mayor Vaughn?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And that passes 9-0. That is all of our public hearing items. We will now move.
Councilmember Abuzoida, we still have H9.
I am so sorry. I am sorry. Okay. H9 requires statement of consistency, so I need a motion for H9. I was moving along too quickly. Dr. Wells moved it.
Second.
Seconded by Tammy Thurm. And that requires statement of consistency, Dr. Wells. Thank you.
The Greensboro City Council believes that its actions to approve the original zoning request for the property at 5309 Hilltop Road from County AG Agricultural to City CDRM 18 Conditional District Residential Multifamily 18 to be consistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reasons. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. The proposed city CDRM 18 zoning district permits uses that fit the context of surrounding area and limits negative impacts on the adjacent properties. The request is reasonable due to the size, physical condition, and other attributes of the area. It will benefit the property owner and surrounding community, and approval is in the public interest.
Thank you. Council, please vote.
While we're voting, Mr. Manager, Mr. Wilson, I'm looking at that map. Looks like we've got 45 acres right there that we're not going to be using, probably the top 3 on Hilltop Road. You might want to see if the attorney would be interested in carving off 3-4 acres that we could sell them.
Be happy to take a look.
I know that's Griffith Park.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Mayor Vaughn? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Mayor Vaughn, did you vote on the screen? She voted on the screen. And that passes 9-0. Thank you all, and thank you for keeping me straight on that. I appreciate that. You all were very kind. Now we're moving on to the general business agenda. Item I-1, resolution approving contract 2023-0310 in the amount of $855,000 with Loudermilk Electric Incorporated for electrical connections for new sports field lighting at Bryan Park Soccer Complex. Moved by Mr. Matheny. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by, I heard Dr. Wells first. Seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And Mayor Vaughn is voting online. That passes 9-0. Item I-2, ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 general fund budget in the amount of $2,500,000 to appropriate approved American Rescue Plan enabled projects. Moved by Mr. Holston.
I have a question, please.
Yes. Mrs. Hightower?
Well, Mr.
Let's get a second first.
Jumped in to move it, so I guess I'll wait for a second from somebody.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Thurman. Mrs. Hightower, you have a question?
Okay, so in reviewing this, we are moving this money into a different pot, or as I'm reading this, because previously we authorized this already, so, and I see the breakdown. Who is the 100 Homes campaign for $1 million for? Who's that?
Let me just, Councilmember Hightower, if I can, all three of these were in fact previously approved by council. They were part of the operating budget last year, so the appropriation expired at the end of the fiscal year. So we're just reappropriating these funds. These are all projects previously approved. There's no new money here in this appropriation.
Okay, so there, but you have it broken down into three, so none of these have been dispersed as of yet because the money expired.
Correct.
Okay, all right, that was my question. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And Mayor Vaughn voted online. And that passes 9-0. Item number I-3, ordinance in the amount of $960,695, amending the Emergency Telephone System Fund for state funding reimbursement. Moved by Mr. Matheny.
Second.
I'm sorry, seconded by Mrs. Hoffman. Council, please vote.
You gotta say it out loud.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And Mayor Vaughn voted online. That passes 9-0. Resolution, item I-4, resolution approving a change order in the amount of $4,205,057 for contract 2023-001 for the resurfacing of streets 2023 project with Blythe Construction Incorporated.
Move the item.
Move the item. I had 3 down here. Dr. Wells moved the item. Mr. Holston seconded. Sharon, did you have a question? Mrs. Hightower has a question.
I think I found my answer, even though I got to turn upside down to get it. I was trying to figure the streets that were being done. Yep.
Yeah, she's got that.
But the map, I have the map.
It's sideways.
But it's sideways information. Yes, okay. I was just trying to find where the breakdowns were.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's usually not that complicated, but okay.
Okay, council, please vote. Mayor Vaughn is voting online. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Councilmember Hightower?
Waiting on Councilwoman Hightower to vote.
I'm just confirming my MWB stuff.
And that passes 9-0. Item I-5, resolution to extend interlocal agreement with Guilford County for tax listing, which is billing and collection services. Moved by Mrs. Hoffman, seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
And Mayor Vaughn voted online. And that passes 9-0. Now, the next items, upon the recommendation of staff, we are hereby requesting funding for the next agenda items as part of the city's legislative agenda to the General Assembly. So I'm going to read all of them, and then we will vote on them one by one. We do have a speaker on one of the items, and I will call that speaker when we get to it. Item I-6, resolution to request funding in the amount of $1 million for replacement for the PFO and PFOS firefighting foam. Item I-7, resolution to request funding in the amount of $7 million for Greensboro Fire Department for fire station to support Piedmont Triad International Airport growth. Item I-8, resolution to request funding in the amount of $18 million for the Greensboro Police Department Information Management System. Item I-9, resolution to request funding in the amount of $300,000 for a peer support clinician for the Greensboro Fire Department. And item I-10, resolution to request funding in the amount of $1.491 million for Greensboro Police Department for the Real-Time Intelligence Center. And item I-11, resolution to request funding in the amount of $152,500,000 for emerging contaminants removal at Mitchell Water Treatment Plant. Item I-12, resolution Item I-12, resolution to request funding in the amount of $26,250,000 for Lake Townsend Water Treatment Plant second clear well. And item I-13, resolution to request funding in the amount of $5 million for water and sewer extension to fully service the airport megasite 1,000 acres. Item I-14, resolution to request funding in the amount of $35 million for the Southeast Feeder Main water sewer extension projects. Item I-15, resolution to request funding in the amount of $9,500,000 for Lee's Chapel water feeder main. Item I-16, resolution to request funding in the amount of $28 million for utility service north of the Greensboro reservoirs. Those are the items we will be voting on one by one. If there's any questions as we get to those, I'll be happy to entertain those. Item I-6. Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson says aye, and Mayor Vaughn is voting online. Item I-7.
Move the item.
Moved by Dr. Wells.
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Johnson. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem is a yes, and Mayor Vaughn voted online. That passes 9-0. Item, I'm on 8. Item I-8.
Could you read, there was one I wanted to ask a question about. I don't know, it has to do with the police request.
Okay, there are two for police. One is for the information management system. That's the one we are getting ready to vote on right now. Then there's,
I'm okay with that one.
Okay.
Maybe it's the next one.
So this is moved by Councilmember Holston and seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote.
Aye.
And that's Mayor Pro Tem is an aye. Mayor Vaughn voted online. And that passes 9-0.
If you'll read this next one, I'd appreciate it.
It doesn't come till item I-10, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm going to pull those up.
I move 9.
Item 9 is the peer support clinician for the Greensboro Fire Department. That's what this one is, $300,000. And that was motioned by Dr. Wells. I did not hear who seconded. Mrs. Thurm seconded. Council, please vote.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem is a yes, and Mayor Vaughn voted online. Did it come up? Okay, that carried 9-0. Item I-10 is the one where we do have a speaker. If you all want to hear the speaker first, would you like to go ahead and hear the speaker? Ms. Petty? And I believe this is the one you wanted to speak on as well, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, would you read it, please?
Yes. Let's see. So item 10, I-10 is the resolution to request funding in the amount of $1,491,000 for Greensboro Police Department Real-Time Intelligence Center. Ms. Petty?
Yeah, that's the one.
It's okay if I get started?
Yes.
My name's Hester Petty, and tonight I'm asking you to postpone your vote on this resolution. The acronym for it is RTIC, that's Real-Time Intelligence Center. The RTIC uses or has acquired the following software and devices: Fusus, intelligence system; Flock Safety, automated license plate readers; Raven, audio detection; Axon, body and vehicle cameras; Vercado, platform security; Force Metrics, data retrieval suite, and drones. While surveillance has a place in law enforcement, my concern is the depth and breadth of its use by the GPD and whether effective safeguards are in place to protect the public from unwarranted, illegal, or racially biased surveillance. This concern includes police monitoring of the social media of individuals and organizations. Is social media monitoring restricted to criminal suspects, or does it include local organizations and their members? What is the criteria used by the GPD to warrant social media surveillance? Is it probable cause, reasonable suspicion, or is it a subjective dislike of the targeted individual or group? By the way, I don't know if the GPD uses facial recognition or voice recognition technology. There are problems with both of those. Are there any records being kept that address whether these technologies have actually been useful? Are they cost effective? What the public needs is transparency and accountability. In 2018, the City of Oakland, California, was faced with these same kinds of concerns. The Oakland City Council responded with an ordinance on surveillance technology, and I hope the City of Greensboro will consider something like that. Until safeguards such as those done by the Oakland City Council are in place, please put this resolution on hold. We don't need any more money going to a center that we don't know is cost effective and is constitutionally safe for the people of the city. One last note. In March 2021, hackers gained access to over 150,000 Vercado surveillance cameras inside hospitals, organizations, police departments, prisons, and schools. Some of these videos were posted publicly. We are living in a brave new world, and we need a brave city council to protect the people of Greensboro from surveillance overreach. Thank you. Please table this.
Okay. I do believe that first we might want to hear from Mr. Davis, then I have a comment, and Mayor Pro Tem, I know you have a comment, and I believe Mayor Vaughn as well.
Thank you, Councilwoman Boozawaiter. Council has been briefed on a number of things that our real-time intelligence center is focused to do. The main component is addressing the violent crime that our city has experienced coming off of a record year. The chief is here if you've got further in-depth questions, but I do know that there are a number of components that are factored into this amount, to include yearly costs for the data packages, as well as the license plate readers that when we go out into our community has expressed that they would like to see these components that we see as a safety and not as alluded to as a monitoring device or some type of technique. Also, this will allow our department, our police department, to build out what it needs to address crime in a more succinct way, but also in a way that we can maintain safety and communication not only with our businesses but with our residents as well. So any other in-depth questions, and the chief is here, we can try to address both.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, I know you asked to speak first. Do you mind if I say one quick thing before I call on you?
No.
Thank you.
No, I don't.
So I want to say that we actually, businesses are being allowed, if they so wish, to tie into this. And the reason being, there's been quite a bit of crime in small businesses and retail businesses. And we actually have a store that we have signed up for this, because if something is going wrong inside the store and the clerk calls 911, the police can go on there automatically and see how many officers they need. Is there someone being hurt? It's a true safety thing from my perspective as a business person. So we have definitely signed up for this, and I personally don't feel it is there to surveil people, because in the case of the businesses, they have to sign up for this. And they have to agree that X number of cameras in their facility are the ones that are going to be tapped into if there's an emergency. They are not tapped into, is my understanding, because I took a tour of it and we have it installed in our cameras, unless there is something where 911 is called, or someone calls 911 from the parking lot, something like that. So that's my understanding, and if that's incorrect or anything, please correct me, but that's what we are using it for. So this is to help staff it on weekends and nights when there is no staff monitoring those cameras, should they be needed. Is that correct, Mr. Davis?
Correct.
Okay, super. Then Mayor Pro Tem, I believe you wanted to make a comment?
No, I've been in conversation about some of this, but the whole package, the in-depthness of it, to me, I would like to have had more conversation. I certainly am one who wants violence to stop and homicides to cease, if not decrease significantly. But I do, there are some areas I would like to hear the pros and cons, and I haven't.
So we need to fix that.
Okay. Oh.
I mean,
Mr. City Manager?
I don't know if the chief wants to talk about it, but I'll just make a point quickly that these are all funding requests for the short session.
To the legislature.
Council will still have plenty of time to have the conversation around this. Yes.
So this is coming down the road. Right. Thank you. Chief, if you want, just say a few words, brief words.
Can I ask a question before you speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that okay with you? Okay. Yeah. I've been to the real-time crime center as well and seen what it does. What kind of sold me on it was Winston-Salem already has this, and they're already doing it. And they talked about their crime being reduced since they implemented this. And so I think that's our primary goal, is to reduce the crime that we're having in our communities, so that people can stop saying it's unsafe to live on one side of town versus another. And, you know, you talk about racial profiling. You don't need a real-time crime center to do racial profiling. That already been happening recently, as a matter of fact. So I think people really need to understand what this is about, more about having the funding. But Chief, one of the things I didn't see or need to ask, could we somehow figure out how to stop people from running the red light through some of this? I want red light cameras and seem to have a hard time getting them. Would that be a component of this as well?
Not necessarily. Not
Darn.
related to that, yeah.
Almost got hit today by a guy running the light, coming over the hill, went right.
Councilwoman Hightower, I'm going to speak. I know Deputy Manager Wilson has been working on that simultaneously along. It's not in this packet, but that is something that we're pushing and working with. I know our Deputy Chief Sigmund from the Police Department, who's got a great relationship and reputation with our county and our schools, are working to push that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah,
Thank you.
I really want to see that
Yes,
too,
ma'am.
as well. Okay, that was my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we covered some of this in our retreat, so yeah, so did you want to give just a short synopsis of how it could help the department if the legislature provides the funds?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. So really the purpose and intent behind the Real-Time Intelligence Center is kind of born from staffing needs. Obviously, we've been talking about staffing across the police department for a few years now, and really what you see as a trend across the country is leveraging technology to kind of supplement where we're short in staffing. And that's what we use the Real-Time Intelligence Center for. We have 3 officers right now. We're hiring 2 additional professional staff, so they will not be sworn police officers that will sit in this center. All of the technologies that Ms. Petty had mentioned, a lot of those we do use. Obviously, Fusus, LPRs. Fusus, what that does is it's a surveillance camera platform, so it allows anybody that wants to. We don't go put cameras in places, in private places. We don't put them in businesses. It's an opportunity for the community. We don't go into homes. We don't ask people in a residence to provide this, but they can opt to share their surveillance camera with our center. And that way, when an incident does happen, it can provide real-time information that can be shared with officers either responding to or on scene to help with whatever incident has happened. The Force Metrics mentioned is actually it's a software that we were in with a company developing a couple years ago, where they're not providing any new data, they just use our existing data. So the databases that we have, they're able to essentially lay a Google search bar over our data, which gives us quicker access and better functioning data to make decisions with that. The LPRs we've had for a while, drones again, those are things that we've had for a while as well. So I will say that I share some of the concerns that Ms. Petty brought up related to the use of this technology and how we can make sure that it is not abused. So we have policies that govern who can use the technology when it's appropriate to be used, and we have audit features to know if it is being used outside of those policies. So internally, we want to make sure we control that it doesn't get abused. Are they foolproof? Absolutely not. But I think what we've done is tried our best to mirror what our best practices across the country to show that we are taking care of our own and making sure we're not abusing it internally. As it relates to cost effectiveness, that is another thing that we are constantly evaluating. The department historically has invested in different softwares or programs and recognized that they're not effective, that we don't use them as much as we would like to use them or could use them. And so we are tracking right now those success stories, how often we utilize it, how many man hours go into it, and what's the results of that. Just recently, 2 weeks ago, anecdotal, but there was a robbery at the Home Depot on Wendover Avenue. because of cameras that were stationed along Wendover Avenue. They tracked the suspect running out of the store, across the street, over to the Walmart parking lot, where they picked up on another camera, ran across the street into Bridford Parkway, and they were able to direct the officer to that exact location to where they intercepted the individual and arrested them. A very minor success story. Our intelligence center has helped in solving homicides, robberies, and even as simple as a crash, where two vehicles, one runs a red light, T-bone, crash in the intersection. The officers hear that the crash goes out. They're able to pull the video camera, clip, and send that video to the officers before they arrive on scene, so they can actually see the crash as they're out there doing their investigation. A couple of very anecdotal situations where it's been effective, but we are tracking that. I know we've asked council if they wanted to tour the Real-Time Intelligence Center. We are also going to open it up to the public so that they can come in and see. And I would invite Ms. Petty personally to come out to schedule. There's certain things we can't show you because information can be protected when we access a criminal database and things like that. But you can see how we're set up. You can see how the cameras are streamed in and the way we use that information to help our officers.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
That's helpful to me. Thank you.
Great. I'm glad we did that. Mayor Vaughn, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I want to echo a lot of what the chief just said. I've been over to the Real-Time Intelligence Center a number of times and have brought this up at neighborhood meetings where neighborhoods have a place that is becoming a nuisance to them, that these cameras are outside. You know, they're not inside. They could be if somebody wanted them inside, but they're outside. But for the most part, these cameras are being passively monitored. The goal is to have about 300 cameras online at one time. So if there is an event, you can go back and see what happened at the time. And then, of course, if somebody is in the Real-Time Intelligence Center and the police call and they need some assistance through cameras, then they can sit there and walk them through it. But we'll never have enough employees to sit down and watch all of those cameras at once. For the most part, they will be helping us collect evidence. The license plate readers, I know that there are neighborhoods who have installed license plate readers and they've had issues with burglaries. You know, as the chief said, or Trey said, you know, since we are down on manpower, we're trying to look at other ways to fill that gap, and technology is certainly one of those ways. And I was very impressed with the Real-Time Intelligence Center and what it did, but more so what it could be, that it could look more like what Winston has. And Winston has had successes with it. I know the chief outlined a few examples, but I would encourage council or the public to go to the Intelligence Center and actually watch what it is. And it's not somebody sitting there behind a desk surveilling people, because they just don't have the manpower to do that if we get all the cameras online that we would like. And I will tell you that there are a number of businesses that I spoke to who have voluntarily asked to have cameras put in their parking lots so they can catch what happened in the parking lot. Imagine if we had cameras up that night when Electric Tequila had that shootout. We would have been able to gather more information and to see exactly what it was that occurred. While there weren't cameras then, if they're not there now, I know they'll be there soon.
Thank you. And Mr. Holston has a comment. Then I have a brief question. And then after we vote, I need to check with staff. Do we need to take a break for closed captioning? No, we can power through.
They normally request a break, you know, about 2 hours in. But if we're close enough to the end of the agenda and you don't anticipate a longer time span on certain items, I think they would be okay with us powering through.
Okay, you hear that, you? Mr. Holston, did you hear that? Yes.
I'll get my 15 minutes that you had earlier.
We need to vote on this and then move on. So Mr. Holston, and then I have a brief question.
The hit dog will holler, won't it? My comment is really directed at Ms. Petty. thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing that conversation and continuing to bring the conversation. As we drive towards safety and security and we get to that threshold, to that line of privacy, it's going to be important that folks like you and others continue to let us know that you think that something could be there, and to help to protect us and the Greensboro community from things that might be nefarious or hacking and the like. So keep doing what you're doing, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holston. And my question really is directed to Mr. Davis or the chief, sorry. So are other agencies allowed to look into here? Is it specifically the City of Greensboro Police Department? Just a curiosity question. Chief is coming up. Sorry, Chief.
So we control who has access to it. If there is another city or entity such as A&T, UNCG, Winston-Salem, and they're on the Fusus software, there is the ability to allow another city access to that. We are not granting that. We go into a partnership with whoever provides us their surveillance feed. The only way that we would share that is if that other agency or entity got permission from them for it to be shared.
From the business owner who has the cameras available to the GPD.
Correct. We're in an agreement with whoever shares their cameras that we have it and only we will have access to it unless they grant somebody else to have access to that. And then that would be an agreement between that business or entity and whoever was requesting it.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, council, please vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem is a yes. Mayor Vaughn voted online. And that passes 9-0. Item I-11 is the one about the emerging contaminants removal at Mitchell Water Plant, moved by Mr. Matheny.
Second.
By Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem is a yes. Mayor Vaughn voted online. Okay.
You've already read all of these.
I've already read them all. I know. Mayor Pro Tem asked me to.
Do you think that I'm
No, you're not interrupting. Mayor Pro Tem just kind of wants a quick word that says what it's about. The next one is I-12, and that's the Lake Townsend Water Treatment Plant, Mayor Pro Tem. Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mr. Matheny. Council, please vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem is a yes. Mayor Vaughn voted online.
Councilmember.
I got you. I'm ready to roll.
No, I didn't get anything.
It passed 9-0.
Okay. It did not come up on my screen. That's what I was waiting for. Okay. She's going too fast. Okay, that passed 9-0. Item I-13, and that is the water and sewer extension
Move the item.
to the airport, Mayor Pro Tem. Moved by Councilmember Thurm, seconded by Dr. Wells? Oh, Mrs.
Okay.
First by Mrs. Hoffman. Council, please vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem is a yes. Mayor Vaughn voted online. And that passes 9-0. Item I-14.
Council Member,
I'm sorry.
On this one, you will notice during Council's strategy session last week, this is the one you had asked to increase the dollar amount, but also to include sewer with the water for Southeast feeder. So that went up from 25 million to 35 million.
Okay. Moved by Mr. Holston. I did not see the second. Council, please vote.
That was seconded by Councilmember Thurm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem voted, and Mayor Vaughn voted online. Item I-15. Moved by Mr. Matheny. Seconded by, I'm sorry, couldn't hear. Seconded by Mrs. Hoffman. Council, please vote.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem is yes. Mayor Vaughn voted online. That passes 9-0. Last item, I-16, resolution to request funding in the amount of $28 million. That is north of the Greensboro Reservoir.
Move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Hoffman, seconded by Dr. Wells.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem is a yes. Mayor Vaughn voted online. And that passes 9-0. That is the end of our agenda for today. Are there any boards and commissions to be appointed?
I don't have any, but I'm gone. Bye and love you.
Okay. Mayor Johnson has left the building. Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, do I hear a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. All right, now, matters to be discussed
I just have
this
a quick,
evening. We'll start down with Mrs. Hightower.
Well, I just have a quick question. Is this the new boards and commissions? So this is just an example. I don't have to read this. I'm gonna need 2 more pairs if I got to read this.
Did you have any other comments, Mrs. Hightower? We're going to read this? That is...
Councilmember Hightower, Q in our office created that just as a step-by-step guide for you navigating that system, since there seemed to be some concern. But he is more than happy to sit down with you and help you, like show you how to navigate that if you're having issues with reading the print. I know we were trying to fit it all in.
Where do I find this at? So
it is on the city website.
Oh, that's right. Now you put everything on the city website, yeah. Okay. No, I don't like that.
Are we good?
I'm going to tell you that right
Okay,
now.
any comments?
But
Council
anyway.
comments? Go right ahead, Mrs. Hightower.
Anyway, yeah, I would like to say that today, I think was an exceptional day. The statue of Justice Fry and Miss Shirley Fry was unveiled in Center City Park, and it is absolutely stunning. It was an awesome event. I am glad that it has been done to give people their flowers while they smell them, see them, touch them, and can appreciate them. And I think we need to do more of that. Just like we also recognize the gentleman who turned 100 here. I've got one turning 90 on Saturday as well. So, you know, I think it's, we have a real great community that people are living in. I want them to all live long, so maybe there's hope for me yet. That maybe if I'll live to be 100. I'll be a thorn in the side for many more years to come.
Thank you, Mrs. Hightower. Mr. Holston?
Thank you.
Yes, a couple things here. First, back on February 8th, I had the opportunity to join with Arthur Durham and the Office of Community Safety. There had been a shooting on Summit Avenue, and he convened some very important community partners from GSO Peace Corps and the Street Ballers to come out and in the Family Dollar parking lot to address the community, address the citizens, and share that they're not alone, that there is assistance and there is there is hope. It was really encouraging to be with the other community partners because, you know, it's a non-traditional type of community partner where they're meeting the residents where they are, and where they are may not be a nice place, but we're meeting them where they are. And I just want to thank the Office of Community Safety and Arthur Durham and Director McNeil for the work they're doing in our community to make it safer for us all. We've said before that it's hard to prove a negative, so the work they're doing really results in something not happening. We've already started off the year just a little rocky, but we have to stay the course and make sure that we're keeping ourselves invested in this type of activity. And then last but not least, just also piggybacking on the wonderful event today in Center City Park with Justice Fry and Shirley Fry. I just wanted to say Shirley Fry is awesome, and she's been a real rock in our community, and I do appreciate her. But also Henry Fry. Today I'm wearing the jacket of the fraternity that we share, Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and that Henry Fry is in our fraternity where we have some 150,000 members who have become members, that Henry Fry is the winner of the Laurel Wreath, which is the highest individual award in Kappa Alpha Psi. So out of 150,000 full members, there are only 81 of those members who have been named the Laurel Wreath winner, and Henry Fry was the 53rd. So congratulations to Henry and Shirley Fry for their recognition today.
Thank you, Mr. Holston. Mr. Matheny? Mr. Matheny's good. Dr. Wells?
All of us attended today. It was a great occasion. On Thursday at noon, the A&T, there will be a groundbreaking for a new residence hall. So that is a big thing for District 2, and those of you that can come to the campus on Thursday at noon. Our community budget sessions, the one for District 2, I have gotten the city manager and the team to change our date from the 29th to the 28th because there was a scheduling conflict with most of the people in my district. So we'll be at McGirt-Horton at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, next Wednesday, for the budget session. So you can learn, see how the budget is built and meet some of the city leaders. So I invite all the District 2 to come to McGirt-Horton next Wednesday. I want to remind everybody that early voting is in progress. There are 17 sites in this county. Please vote. Go to the polls and vote.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. Mrs. Thurm?
Just to piggyback on Dr. Wells' comments about voting, please vote, and please remember that you need to have ID this year to vote. If not, you'll be asked to vote a provisional ballot and fill out the paperwork, et cetera. But if you have an ID, please be sure to bring your ID when you go to vote.
Thank you, Mrs. Thurm. Mrs. Hoffman?
Just to piggyback on the event today, this is just another wonderful reason for us to go to Center City Park. So really happy that sculpture is there, and for what the Frys have done for this city and that they have lived among us all of these years.
Mayor Vaughn?
I too wanted to talk about the great event today honoring Henry and Shirley. They are so deserving of that statue. I also wanted to mention that Senator Budd's office came by the GPD earlier this morning and gave a plaque for the Nix family where Senator Budd had put the life and death of Dale Nix, Sergeant Nix, in the congressional register. So he gave a copy of that for GPD and a copy for the Nix family.
Thank you. And I believe Mayor Pro Tem already left. I just wanted to say that I went to the Sergeant Dale Nix tournament in Sophia, North Carolina. You know, a lot of agencies are coming around to support the Nix family, and it was freezing Saturday morning, but you know, there were a lot of people there, and they raised money for the Nix family, and I got to sit with Kelly Nix, and I'm telling you, she's a strong woman right now, being strong. The only other thing I had was, as everyone has mentioned about Justice and Shirley Fry, it was an amazing event today, and I know that everyone is very pleased to see the statue. So that's all I have. Yes, Mrs. Hightower.
I did leave out, and Goldie reminded me, District 1 does have a budget meeting on Thursday, this coming Thursday, at 6 o'clock. But I would like to ask the city manager, whenever these things are planned, can you talk to us first? Because it conflicts with my ACAD committee mixer, where they're going to talk about foods from the African diaspora. And so it's from 5:30 to 7:30. And that's a conflict. And I just heard another conflict, and I saw where another conflict got rescheduled. It would be nice if you would check with us first, because a lot of times we know what's going on, and everything's not on a calendar. You know, so it's not fair to people who are attending to have to come. And so if you can please make sure that happens in the future. I also want to remember that we did lose another icon in our community, of Dr. Joe Dudley of Dudley Products. You know, his service, I believe, was yesterday. And so he has a long legacy in this community and women like myself are really appreciative of Dr. Dudley because I use the products.
Dudley products.
And have for years. And so this community has lost a real legend. And, you know, so keep the family in your prayers.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
I have nothing.
Mr. City Manager?
Nothing, thank you.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Matheny, seconded by Mr. Holston. Thank you.